Morning guys, Mon here. While the video is starting the exact same as the last one, the topic is different. Last video I was talking about the stack deck strat. Today I'm talking about the character I'm doing the strat with. This character is an Autobomber, and what's happening? Autobombers are pretty much my most favorite archetype for mapping, because they can be very chill, and especially the Ignite Autobomber, which by far is my most favorite variation of this archetype, just feels very smooth in play. Also for this one, if you are not boosting the map mods to infinity, which this build isn't really made for anyways, you can run all map mods, which is very, very nice. You do lose some map mods when you push the maps too hard, and will have to regex then for like element avoidance or cooldown recovery, stuff like that. But generally the idea of this character is to just run around, explode multiple screens of enemies with ignite proliferations, and actually have decent single target damage while doing so. This character is not entirely min-maxed and could, with more investment, be about twice as strong single target wise, but I'm very happy with the state it is in, and for what I'm doing with it, it is absolutely fine. Also, I did invest 500 divines into a staff that did end up not working out, which kind of annoyed me, and I just kept this staff in the state it currently is. Show in a moment. Generally, the entire idea of the character is built on the Harbinger ascendancy and the elementalist jewels that lets us ignite with all types of damage. This also does give 100% chance to ignite, and you could technically go with some different stuff, but having all damage can ignite is very, very good, because Fireburst scales a lot with just general flat damage of any kind, because it has a very, very high effectiveness of added damage. Now, the staff pretty much is just high damage over time multi, fire burst, and then the prefixes are, well, lightning damage to spells. Here it is lightning damage. This should be either fire damage or spell damage, with non-chaos as extra chaos damage and gain fire as extra chaos damage. This is a very strong spell. I do use the Culling Strike enchant for better single target, and yes. Generally, as I said, the base idea is cast level 20 Fire Burst on hit. Fire Burst is a spell we are triggering with Herald of Thunder. Do I have my third of Thunder somewhere there? Which just hits an enemy somewhere, then the explosion comes in there, ignites the enemies around there, and then RFN just goes through packs of monsters and keeps the chain going. So we have a chain of explosions and ignite proliferation. With the ignite proliferation support and the Fan the Flames jewel for the explosions, because these need a separate what's called for proliferation. However, we still use the ignite proliferation gem because it does have a wider radius. This is pretty much the base idea of the build. There's not much more to it. Everything else is just scaling the damage and the survivability. I'm running Headhunter because it does make sense on an Autobomber, because we just want to be fast. And we're clearing screen wide, so we're just gaining a lot of stuff. A lot of buffs that make us tanky, which is very nice when we're running through the map. and just tanking on death effects and stuff like that, so that we don't fall over. Headhunters just pretty much mostly defensively and speed-wise. Offense-wise, we don't really need the buffs. The Harbinger Ascendancy is very interesting because it does give the Summon Visiting Harbinger of Time skill, which gives 10% action speed and 40% increased cooldown recovery rate. This cooldown recovery rate enables us to not use a cooldown belt and not use cooldown boots. We just have a replica shroud with 2% cooldown recovery jewels and flat damage. So these jewels aren't really expensive because you don't need a lot of stats on them, and 2% cooldown recovery actually is very achievable. You could upgrade with 3% or put cooldown recovery on the boots and then put quality on your Herald of Thunder, because Herald of Thunder makes the storm hit faster, but you want to time your Herald of Thunder hits together with your Fireburst cooldown. So right now I do have 0.25 and 99 cooldown, so every fourth hit will trigger the Fireburst explosion. Then we just scale the damage with gloves that give added fire damage against burning enemies. We reduce the resistances of enemies and make ignited steel faster damage. And the boots give a lot of speed with tailwind, elusive, movement speed, onslaught, all that stuff. The ring, we are using a curse enemies with flammability on hit. This is slightly different to what I was using on my last variation of this build 2 years ago. I will link both POBs into the comments or into the description so that you can compare them, because one of these does only work for Phrecia and the other one works in the general game. Then we are running a Polaric Devastation for cover enemies with Ash on hit, and the resistances are very nice also. Most people are using Replica Emberwake on Ignite builds because it's a lot of additional damage, but I am not a big fan of it because it makes the Ignite duration very short, and longer Ignite duration means longer proliferations, which makes clearing, especially Ether packs, a lot more chill because the proliferation just stays on the ground and kills respawning enemies like in Ritual and stuff like that. The amulet, we just have recombined suffixes with damage over time multi, fire damage over time multi, and minimum frenzy charges and frenzy charge on kill. I wanted frenzy charge on kill here because we're running phase run, and with the frenzy charge on kill on an item piece, either ring or amulet, you don't have to run what's called blood thing. The charge right now, blood rage. Blood rage to generate frenzy charges, so this is very convenient to keep a long duration on phase run. We do have 4 durations without frenzy charges and gained like 12, I do think, with. Also, we are gaining 30% buff expiration rate is slower, so they're generally the Headhunter buffs and the phase run and the Harbinger buffs all just stay up longer, which is very, very convenient. Also, we are generating 20% of our mana as extra maximum energy shield and 10% of life as extra energy shield, so this is quite a big boost. I was playing around with the Temporal Chains curse, however, I didn't really want to path for additional curse, and I did like the debuffs on you expire faster and buffs expire slower for the Headhunters, so I just went without dual curse and went these buffs. Then generally for the tree, you just want to aim for some damage over time multiplier. And for the cluster jewels, you are going with interesting that this is cold damage, but it doesn't really matter a lot because you just want widespread destruction, Sadist, and Prismatic Heart. This is not the best combo, but a very cheap one. And Sadist is pretty much the most important one, and I do like widespread destruction for the AoE. Then we have medium cluster jewels with Circling Oblivion and Fan the Flame, Hooked Alive, Blowback, Circling Oblivion, Brush with Death, and Blowback. I do like multiple blowbacks for a lot of damage, because we're not running Replica Emberwake, we can stack a lot of faster Ignite rate. Rush with Death I do like 2 times just to keep the recovery up. And 2% life and energy shield on kill feels very, very good. For Juvels, we just went with maximum life and, well, damage. Some attributes here and there. And then we have 1 preservation efficiency Juvel to make us use stuff. This one isn't very well rolled, and you could have a much, much better one, but I didn't really bother. You could get like max life on and stuff like that, so this one is improvable by a lot. Then we have 1 corrupting blood immunity Juvel because with the explosions we stack corrupting blood very, very quickly. Also we're running 1 lethal pride with max life and faster ignite again. There's a couple of variations here you can run, but generally just aim for faster igniting. I'm running a Watcher's Eye with fire damage and damage over time multi. Very strong one here, and then we have the Forbidden Flash. Apart from that, there is not a lot of interesting stuff going on. Well, for the flasks, Bottle Faith for single target, Quicksilver for speed, for Genesis for, well, being a lot more tanky. This is a novelty item, you don't need it, but it does make you a lot more tanky, but comes at quite a cost. Gold Flask is very good because we do want to generate a lot of gold pretty much all the time for the city. And then the RF Ant is mandatory for the explosion chain. This pretty much sums up the entire build, except for the gems, I do think. Life tab you need on quite a lot of stuff because you just don't have the mana to cast it. But actually I'm using a line 3, so you could go with a line 4 and drop the life tab and put some other stuff in there. I do have Frostblink, Phase Run, life tab, moderation, Enlighten, Anger, Malevolence, Thunder. Life tab, customer damage taken, Steel Skin, and some Skitterbots. You could also add Flame Surge or the Alchemist's Mark for a Burning Ground dot, but on this variation I wanted to refrain or stay away from pretty much all buttons to press, so you could improve your single target by 25% with just adding a Flame Surge here, which is very, very strong, but I just didn't really want to use it, but it would be better for single target. For the Fireburst, we want the supports Deadly Ailments, Swift Affliction, Ignite Proliferation, Unbound Ailments, Combustion, and Awakened Burning Damage. This now sums up everything I wanted to talk about, and is, as I said, a very, very cool build, one of my most favorites, and this is a nice variation with the Harbinger Ascendancy. If any questions come up, feel free to ask. I'll try to answer everything. So, thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.